Can you get more value out of crash test dummies? Is an unsuspecting tier 4 unit the ultimate hard counter against Karthus? And is it possible to gain more gold than intended from the augment Escort Quest? Welcome to the 4th episode of the TFT Mythbuster Series for set 10. Let's get started. First up, let's take a look at the augment Crash Test Dummies. This is a new augment added in set 10 that grants you 2 target dummies that crash into the enemy team at the start of combat. Honestly, I think it is a super creative spin of the old augment phony frontline, and players so far have been loving it. The myth states every target dummy works with crash test dummies. As it turns out, there is more than one way to get your hands on a target dummy. For example, there is the augment Escort Quest that is granting you a dummy and some gold if it survives. Another option would be to take stationary support, which grants you a dummy with a support item. It doesn't even have to be another augment. There's also a starting portal that grants every player a target dummy at the start of the game. So the question is, do target dummies that we receive from other sources also crash into enemy units? In this game, I started with the portal training dummy and also found the augment crash test dummies in stage 3-2. Here we have 3 powerful target dummies spread on my board, buffed by both Jazz and KDA, so they become even more tanky. The fight starts and all 3 of them yeet into the opponent's team. This seems to be a clear-cut case. Now, while I've seen this work with stationary support as well, it doesn't actually look like crash test dummies can appear if you open the game with Escort Quest. At least, there doesn't seem to be any data for this augment combination. Nevertheless, this myth is confirmed. For our next myth, let's take a look at our good old friend Karthus. We already covered how Illaoi can be a pretty good counter by making him waste almost half his ultimate into tentacles, but maybe this isn't the only way to make him useless. The myth states Z shadows are viable targets for Karthus. This is a pretty weird one, but it goes a bit like this. Zed's ability states that he will spawn an untargetable shadow for 4 seconds with a set amount of AD that will walk around attacking enemy units. Karthus, on the other hand, deals magic damage to the 5 lowest health enemies on the board. According to the myth, the shadows are not only targetable, but will also get prioritized. I had a pretty good idea on how to test this, so let me introduce you to Blue Buff, Mana Zane, Edge of Night Zed. The enemy has a Karthus with no items, so he ends up taking his sweet time before casting his ability. No problem, this gives our Zed enough time to fill up the room with a bunch of shadows. When Karthus ults, we can see that the targets are Mordekaiser, Zed, and 3 of the shadows. Funnily enough, all of them end up dying before he can even finish his cast, so Lux in the backline was not affected by Karthus. But she's still going to have to deal with the rest of the team herself. A more normal spot probably looks like this. Zed will cast once before Karthus, and then Karthus will lose one of his targets to the shadow and lose out on some damage. In theory, if you're running Illaoi in combination with Zed, you can cut down the effectiveness of the enemy Karthus by quite a lot. I think it's fair to say this myth is confirmed. The last myth is a fun one. There has been a rumor surrounding the augment Escort Quest. This augment grants you a target dummy, and every player combat it survives, you receive 3 gold. The myth states you can still get your reward after failing the escort. If this ends up true, then I have to say that this could be a pretty cool concept for the Riot MMO, because after all, nobody enjoys doing escort quests. What if you just deliver the corpse and receive half the reward? Anyways, back to the myth. The 2 traits that always come up regarding this myth are Disco and KDA. Let's look at Disco first. I did read about a player mentioning that he would receive gold from his Disco orb even after his dummy was taken out. So I hopped into the game, went for the Escort Quest and added Disco. Initially, everything seemed to be working as intended, but after letting the game run for a while, I finally found what I was looking for. 3 gold appeared out of seemingly nowhere. This did happen later in the game again, even after I lost the fight. This is definitely not supposed to happen. After comparing all of the fights, it became clear what happened. The Disco balls will heal units that start adjacent to them every few seconds. If this heal is already in the air and the dummy dies, then the HP for the dead dummy goes above 0 and the augment will still spit out the gold. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to get any clips for KDA causing this, but I think I have a pretty good idea of the potential culprit. I first investigated the KDA hexes, but after going through a lot of VODs, I couldn't find anything wrong with them. But then it hit me. Seraphine is a KDA unit that is very popular, especially in early mid-game. Her ability will target the largest cluster, dealing damage to enemies and healing allies. I think there's a pretty good chance that Seraphine is trying to heal the dummy right when it dies, and it causes the same interaction like with the disco ball. Regardless, the disco clip was enough proof for me. This myth is also confirmed. 3 more myths down and many more to go. I just wanted to say thank you for all of the support so far. It has been nothing but a joy to read through the comments and come up with new and interesting myths to cover in the future. I hope you learned something, and see you next time.